it's so difficult to get hold of this gentleman, okay? I'll be honest, last time I met him was 4 years, 5 years? 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years, okay? And since then has been on his journey. We've tried to contact him during his Crystal days. And so we have been friends for a long, long time, but I think his life has been busy. I think what he has been able to achieve in HDFC Bank in such a quick time has been phenomenal, right? I think uh, I just can't imagine how much of complicated stuff is to transform. And I think if I see in the market kind of innovation HDFC Bank is doing, I think it is a giant moving at a fast pace, and the kind of discussions we hear about the company and the kind of development do is phenomenal. So before going to the structure and any structure question, I actually wanted to ask about how the journey of building up or rebuilding the bank digital stack and what it takes to build it up.
Thanks, Samir, and good to connect after such a long time. Yeah, I think, like you said, it is a busy, busy life, so to say. I think I'll just go back a little bit in terms of where it started, right? I mean, you know that I kind of ran a startup for very long. Much before the hype of the startups came in, I kind of decided to do this in 2010. That a fabulous journey. Then I was kind of serving my notice at CRISIL because CRISIL had bought over my company. And then I got a call, from the doyen of the industry saying, why don't you kind of look at HDFC Bank? I said, nahi, startup ke baad HDFC Bank. I mean, it's like a dichotomy, right? So, but he said, that's what that's what we're looking for. We're looking for someone to come and help out in a very different way. I land up there and I thought I will do all the kind of stuff that I've done in startup, the open source, the cloud and blah, blah, blah. But, I get in and then in 10 days, we had a regulatory, like my CEO, now current CEO says, rap on our knuckles. And we were kind of completely taken apart because the data center had gone down, the mobile apps were not working. And, generally the industry's view was, ye to bahut bank technology nahi chalta hai iska. So that's how it started. And I think it was not that it was anything like that. I think there was a lot of work that was happening at the back. But what I saw was instead of just getting into the historical issues in a way that it's all okay, fine, every bank goes down, every system goes down kind of stuff. I think what I thought, and actually Sashi was the CEO, and both of us had a lot of, and it was very intense discussions, and because we are going through a real regulator scrutiny for about a year, and I can't kind of tell you how intense it was. And we said, let's use this as an opportunity to look at it in a very different segment. I mean, let's not try and find out reasons, and let's not say bank is going to be like that. If you're going to think that way, then things will not move. And that's how we started the journey. In fact, it took 1 year to kind of get everything back in terms of, what the usual things, the scalability, the obsolescence, the monitoring and blah, 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 the usual run the bank stuff. But what we set out in that period is also to see how do we kind of transition into a different kind of thought process. And that's where a lot of our new thoughts come. So we run a digital twin within the bank, what we call as a digital factory and an enterprise factory. And it's kind of, and I can talk about it in a little bit more detail, but sum and substance, we said centralized offices technology doesn't work. You can't bring people into central offices and make them go through the processes, and it's something that's not going to work. Second, clearly challenge. I mean, cloud, for example, is a challenge. Why would the traditional banks, be so wary of cloud? I mean, it's a fundamental, problem in the mind. It's not a problem with the regulator. It's not a problem with, with the industry. Somewhere, I think we have to kind of course, there are caveats for sure, but there are ways to find out. So we did a very interesting way to adopt cloud, and I can talk about that. Then we said, let's try and set up small shops of 100, 150 people spread across multiple locations. And they start kind of really building products in a way that a startup would do, but with the overlay of the regulatory requirements. So that's the real crunch. So we created this digital twin of enterprise and digital factory. Cloud was clearly a very clear, this thing. The third aspect is to work with a lot of fintech players, because we also very, very clear that Gone are the days where working with large players and just kind of doing the same old thing. So the digital factory, for example, is focused on only working with fintechs. We don't normally work with large players out there in that sense. And these are new age players with technology as the central, foundational block. And then, of course, a lot of other things were done. The way we work in these factories, a lot of agile stuff, a lot of journey engineering, working with fintechs. I think it's been a very exciting journey, and what you're seeing is now, over last few months, we started rolling out products from these factories. And we're clearly seeing a very different kind of you look and feel, a very different kind of experience from a customer perspective. So I think in that sense, the whole pivot from a traditional thought process to a new age thought process happened because of an event. And I think that was a very, very solid lesson for us. And I think it's remarkable that sometimes these kind of things create opportunity for you.
Okay, so fair point. I think as a user, I know that your mobile banking was bad and this one is good, okay? And I'm talking about, frankly, I tell everything, it's not that I'm trying to hide it, but it was bad and today it's good. I think I see the experience to be at par with the best in the country. Okay, so maybe let's come back. Now, when you do a large transformation, there's always the impact we have to look at from a business perspective. So can you talk about short-term and positives and negatives and long-term positives and negatives you're looking at of this humongous transformation? Top line, bottom line, any specific metrics on productivity, anything which you look at?
So I think, look, there is both short-term and long-term, and there is both positives and negatives. I think negative is that, and let me start deal with the negatives. In the short term, the negatives were largely ability to attract talent. Okay, very, very critical. Second is changing the methodology, the way you work, because it's a cultural shift. The third point, which to my mind is the most important point, is, and it's also an opportunity, I don't think it's a negative, I think just transforming the existing force to think in a different way, right? It's a very important part of the journey. So whether it's our digital teams, whether it's our solution teams, whether it is our technology teams, all of them have had a way of working, and that was changing. It's a tough one, so it takes time. So I can speak about it today because it's 2.5 years, and I know that it's kind of gone through that cycle. From an investment perspective, I think it's very difficult, Samir, if you start putting technology as an expense. I think fundamentally the world has changed around it. I find it very, very funny when people analysts throw technology cost to income ratio is high. Technology is not a cost today. It's actually an opportunity and investment actually, right? So if you look at it, these global benchmarks keep getting thrown up that, largely Indian banks are at whatever, 4.5%, 5% kind of stuff. Global banks are 9%, fintechs get at 18, 20%. I think the entire mindset itself has to be changed, because what you are bringing to the table is not an expense, it's an investment. And that has to be measured from a business outcome perspective. So I think we changed our entire methodology today, and that's why you would see our expense ramp up on technology has been fairly significant over the last 3 years. Because in the bank, we clearly recognize that investing into startups, investing into the factories, developing the technology is very essential. So that was a very clear negative to positive move. Short-term positives, again, a lot of focus, because the fintech industry also taught us to compete. Anybody can compete with the banks today, right? I mean, 10-member startup can acquire far faster and far, in a far agile way than a large startup. So the boundaries of size have disappeared. So I think that's a negative for a bank like us, right? And we have to recognize that. So I think that was a clear, how do we become more and more agile? And it's not easy, like I said, and this whole play of fintech getting regulated and the banks getting agile, that journey will continue to play out. And the real thing is getting the right balance. I think it's somewhere in that middle where you don't lose any of the regulatory focus, but at the same time, you continue to develop at a pace that's kind of in line with the market expectation. Long-term positives, I think we'll start. Long-term negatives, I don't think there's any long-term negatives. Samir, I think you have to get to this transformation journey. I think every bank, every single entity, and I said this, in fact, I said this in my interview, at HDFC, saying, I think banks are 20 years back at the technology platforms. You can't run a monolithic database and a JVM structure and hope that it will scale up. It's not going to happen. Okay, today the world is around, horizontal scaling, microservices, API, and they run. I mean, today we are thinking about Chat GPT transforming the world, and here the biggest of the financial institutions are still running Java-based or database-based, stored procedure-based platforms, right? So I think that is the change that every bank has today, and that's a tough one. That's a negative because in the long term, it will come and hurt every single bank if they don't move that transformation. Long-term positives, I don't have to tell you. I think you will compete with fintechs and you will also partner. I don't want to kind of just say compete. You'll also partner because both things will go together. And I think largely it will definitely drive the customer experience, which is the most important part of all of the things in the right direction. So I think there are lots of the boxes that you mentioned, the 4x4, if you ask me. I think everywhere there is a story that needs to be kind of told as we go along this journey.
Okay, you spoke about fintech partnerships. Normally, I have been sharing the framework for engagement, and we always found HDFC to be competing with the fintechs. I'm talking about a bit old information, which is maybe 3 to 4 years back, and now we see collaboration, right? So maybe you can give us a few instances of collaboration you have done, and both how the progress and the impact is. And there are a lot of founders here in the group as well, and many banks. So if you can guide on what are the right areas of collaboration where banks, or maybe if you want to talk in particular about HDFC, you can talk about, which you are looking at innovation and you would love to partner with them.
Sure. Sure, I think so. Just to give you a little perspective, what kind of partnerships that we run, like I said, we do run a separate entity called Digital Factory, which largely engages us with start. And I'm not saying only fintechs. When I say, I also look at it as technology partnerships also. Let's not kid ourselves. It's not about a fintech. It's also about fundamentally foundational technology companies. So I'll give you an example. So today, if you kind of call any of our call centers, you will find a bot hitting you. That bot can speak in Hindi. It can speak in English. You can kind of flip the language. In between, you can use a English space. It'll all work. Okay. The same bot also powers our WhatsApp today. You go to a WhatsApp. You want to pull out your full year statement. You want to kind of go for a new product. It all powers by the same bot. You go to the Twitter. You put the feed in there. The same bot also reads the Twitter feed and then responds back either through the automated system or to the manual system. All of this we did not partner any of the large ones. We went with the company in US, which was very different in its approach to the voice technology and the customer experience. Similarly, we're working with, very interestingly, with the company in Bangalore, which is kind of reviving our entire PayZap product. It's in the beta launch today. I think we lost our space to the GPays and the Paytms, and everybody knows that. But I think we didn't want to kind of say that we will just kind of be reactive, because I do believe that you need a payments app and the banks need an underlying payments app. It's very, very important for the industry. So you'll see, so we just kind of launched a very new looking kind of a platform, again in a partnership with a fintech in Bangalore. We're working with another fintech to completely revamp our wealth management platform. Okay, the entire wealth management mobile app experience is undergoing a change. We're working with another partner to completely digitize our SME experience, the entire open banking experience on the SME side. We work with a lot of, we're working with another partner on the microfinance area. We're working with a partner on core transfer, which is unbelievable. Actually, which is to my mind, it's the most important project that we are doing. Is we are actually trying to hollow the core, hollow the core banking. Okay. Because if you don't attack the core banking architecture, you can build whatever you want to build around. The digital interface will look very good. Your APIs will also probably work because they're also a new platform. But finally, you will hit a core banking. And imagine, Samir, today the fundamental problem with the banking is that you cannot have banks like us do 5 crore transactions a day on UPI. SBI does 10 crores. You cannot be hitting a single database and hoping it will always survive. Okay, there will be that moment. Okay. And that is a fundamental flaw in the banking architecture today. So we're working with a very set of interesting Valley startups. Again, as I said, I've been working with a very new age database guys who do a write, which means you write, and banking is all about ACID, because SQLs have to be written in a very consistent way, in an integrated way. And there is this whole concept in Oracle, which Oracle kind of pioneered, that you run a kind of a ACID transaction, and then you have a real-time application cluster to kind of spread the transaction. But you can do that only in one data center. And you can read and then copy and write it in another place. Today's generation is not that. You are at a stage where, just to copy and write it into another location can take 10 to 15 minutes. And the world is not waiting for 10 to 15 minutes. So today, what do? Big techs and the new kind of databases, they do write today. So if you go look at Cockroach, Yugabyte, you look at RockDB, Spanners of the world, they do very different way of technology. We have to learn from them. So we're working with a very interesting bunch of startup guys in Mumbai who said, let's look at all this new age database and how to do payments on a write mode. Which means I write one payment in Bangalore, I write the same at the same time write in Mumbai, and they kind of are consistent with each other. So this kind of work also is happening, in the bank. So as I said, a lot of tech-driven startups. We also work with a lot of, and it's not just these tech startups. On the fintech side, we are working very closely with some of the partners that are out here, whether it is in terms of credit assessment programs, very interesting credit gateway. We're working with a very interesting partner on cattle finance. In fact, we launched our cattle finance some time back. And it's amazing because we did disperse cattle finance in exactly 5 minutes time. And there were a lot of issues in the industry. Just to give you a little perspective how this works. And it's an interesting fintech and an agri-tech example. We worked with a company which was giving dairy data to us. Because we figured out that doing classical cattle finance on livestock is not an easy thing, because you can put RFIDs on the ear of the cow, but people figure out a way to kind of duplicate that. So we said, why are we even doing that? So we went to a dairy provider. We said, okay, let's see the milk output. What is the milk output that's being sold at that point? Because that will tell you how much is your livestock in a reverse calculation. So we took all of that. And today we disburse a complete digital journey of a buffalo or a cow loan in about 5 minutes time. So just the breadth of, so right from a customer experience hub on a bot-driven stuff to a core banking transformation to coming to a cattle finance, that is the level at which we are working with a lot of fintech startups. So I think we are very open today. Yes, it's not that everybody can come and work with everything. We are still slow. It's not like everything has kind of transformed. But today we're running about 18 to 20 programs like this, Samir, across the board actually. And it's very, very exciting. And we are very, very open to opportunities and to kind of collaborate. So.
Well, I think interesting point, because I think the cattle piece is still an issue, right? I think most of the time cattle loans take, say, 10 to 15 days to go through. And as we digitize that data, I think the value chains will get solved as well, right? I mean, we can get credit to those farmers in multiple more ways. Maybe you want to talk a bit more about other rural initiatives you would have taken, because digital is always thought through as an activity done for maybe elite, right? So for rural, for vernacular guys, for those who are not very literate, for women. So anything you want to talk about digital initiatives you're taking for them? And yeah, I think that's thought for us.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very important point, because a lot of us, and I'm not kind of trivializing it, a lot of times we think that launching a real near mobile app for the Uber millennials, or doing a new age credit card, which is very, very sexy, so to say. These are good things, but the fact is that it's a saturated market. Today, the digitization of the India has to happen in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities and in the rural areas. There is no doubt to my mind. And also, I want to be very clear that a lot of times we kind of miss the woods for the trees from a construct perspective. Because we think everything digital has to be unassisted, scanning of the document happens, some AI ML algorithm will throw up, some decisioning engine will come and everything will get kind of, disbursed in seconds. So the reality is that today, even today, a lot of Indians today, when they get to the ATM, they need a security guard to help. A lot of our parents need their kids to show them how to use a mobile. So let's not try and say that, all journeys can be fully digitized in next 2 years. It is a constant evolving process. So I think, first of all, we have to be very clear on assisted journeys are here to stay. It's not going to go off, okay? So having said that, the requirement at the rural areas is very different. I mean, so 2 initiatives, I spoke about cattle finance. There's another initiative that we are doing, which is very interesting. We call it a digital distribution platform. We run it with a startup in Bangalore, with a Fintech actually in Bangalore. So where one of the things that I've found out is that most of the rural, or the semi-urban cities actually, they depend still to come to a kind of a place, a point of sale, a business correspondent or a computer service center like an Aadhaar Seva Kendra for getting their digital, fulfillment, and whether it's a DBT thing, whether it's an Aadhaar update, or whether it's some other government scheme that they go. These are very great points of presence from a banking catchment perspective. But you know what? Every single bank today runs it, the system won't work there. Why? Because the laptops, damn it, don't work. The connectivity is poor. Then there are security considerations because that guy can put your account number, so can he put 4 more account numbers and get your data. So we are running with a very interesting platform, which is completely making what we call as a bank outside a bank kind of a platform. Okay, and what is the philosophy here? The philosophy here is that you run it's like a packaged platform. It can do acquisition, all kinds of acquisition, right from current account, savings account, to selling a tractor finance loan, to doing dairy finance, everything putting into one particular app, and it's a mobile plus laptop app. And then on top of it, we have kind of overlaid payment transactions and then the servicing aspects. But what's important, we've done some very interesting innovations. For example, what we are doing with this platform is take an example of a statement. Why should you print a statement at a village level, this thing center? Because then it becomes an information security risk, right? Then your bank guy will say, oh, the statement can be printed by anybody. So what we did was interesting. We actually said, okay, let the guy come and do an Aadhaar AEPS authentication. I will send the statement to his WhatsApp. Okay, he's already on WhatsApp. So what is the problem? So things like that we started kind of moving on. So this platform caters to similarly balance inquiries. Every balance inquiry screen will have a thumb impression, and then only you can go move forward. Simple innovations, but then what we did, the agent commissioning. It's a very important point. Most of the agents don't get commissions on time. So they kind of revamp the entire onboarding experience of the agent and the commissioning experience. So this platform for me is like a holistic platform, right? From every single type of loan that we can sell, and then we run at scale. It's a very interesting experiment. We just started with it. The initial results have been very, very, very phenomenal. So that was one thing. Second, I also think a lot of our journeys have to become regional. I think we somehow lost the plot on the regionalization of the journey. I mean, why, if WhatsApp, all of you would agree with me that when you go down to the rural areas, you will find WhatsApp being in Hindi or in Tamil or in Marathi, and that's how the whole, the system builds up. Today, none of our banking apps are multilingual. Not one app, actually. And that's a And I know everybody says, no, we have a multilingual. But the multilingual is what? You go to the right corner of the click, change the multi, and then only the screens come. And it's so horrible experience, right? So one of the things that we have not got there, but we are completely redesigning our journey. So all our rural journeys and semi-urban journeys, or even some of the urban journeys, we are pushing. So our new mobile, so while you spoke about a mobile, our new mobile app will actually fundamentally have multi-language capabilities to start with, okay? So I think a lot of things happening in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, right from cattle finance. Land record is a very interesting, not just us, a lot of banks are now being pushed by regulator, and rightly so, to, for example, can you pull out land records from state governments and kind of verify the record to give it's not a collateralized, it's an uncollateralized, but at least the authenticity of the land record as a collateral is available. It's an initiative that 6 banks have taken. A lot of work is happening. We are part of that program. So I think if you see across the board, so many of these programs have to be directed to the deep hinterlands. Digital banking unit was a very interesting experiment. Like a lot of you would know, 75 branches launched. I think these are things in the right direction. So, to a lot of players here who are fintech guys, don't think digital as just being an urban, millennial kind of phenomenon. There's a lot of work happening inside. And we are, I think, my way of looking at it is that 60 to 65% of our focus will go into that, and only 25 to 30% of the focus will actually go into the urban segments as we go further digital, actually.
Okay. I think if there is any question you guys have, maybe we may have time for 1 or 2 questions. If somebody could assist the team here with a question, that'll be good.
Hi, Ramesh. Thanks a lot for that. I do have a couple of questions. I'll try and make them quick. The first one is you mentioned that one of the problems that you're trying to deal with within the bank is to sort of change the mindset of the existing workforce to be more adaptive to these. Now, I would guess that in a giant like HDFC, it's probably a little harder to do that than in smaller organizations being very pragmatic and practical. So what are some steps that you're actually taking? I'm talking very, very actionable, practical steps. I'm sure getting them in a conference room and saying, we need to become digital is not what you're doing, right?
No, that's a great question. In fact, and that's been the toughest part. Let me be
Yeah,
honest.
you picked up my question. I had less when I can many pusta bahut puch liya. Thank you.
No, no, it's a great question because see, we can all talk about, we'll do agile, we'll do, microservices architecture, cloud and two pizza, one pizza kind of, all of that stuff can come through. But what do you do with a workforce that's been with you for 25 years, who've done work with a very different kind of approach? So I think two projects that I want to talk about, which we did very interestingly. One, we actually revamped our trade platforms on the flow side, okay, not on the front end side. We still have to go and do it on the front end side. Back end side, it was a traditional workflow application developed by a traditional vendor, okay, who had never seen cloud in his life, okay. I'm telling you this openly. And it was just to book a trade, it would take 7 platforms. It will start with, trade initiation, go to OFAC, go to, your world link checks, go into rule engine, then kind of come and finally go and book the LC onto the backend platform. 7, 8 screens the ops guys used to use and, image reading and all of that stuff. So it was a very old platform. So we said, okay, let me not try and do this as some factory in Bangalore and bunch of 100 new guys doing this. We said, because trade is a very interesting animal, it needs a lot of domain knowledge. Like Samir would tell you because he's been part of that in his earlier journeys. So there what we did, we simply said, okay, let's just pick the same platform vendor, same set of people who are doing it. We actually then worked with a cloud service provider. And we said, this project will get completed into a cloud native architecture. Okay? And it took us 16 months, not 1-2 months, 16 months. Okay? It took time. Today, the same team that actually was running it on a traditional architecture, they moved and migrated. In fact, today there was the 30th branch that went live on their platform. And, all of those guys, today, if you ask them how a microservices work, how a DevOps pipeline works, how does an API on a REST journey works, they understand. So, and we had to put some people from these cloud service providers engineering side. We also had to seed some of the new age people along with the teams. We did a similar work on our collateral lending application. These are not very sexy applications in the front end. These are really back-end grunt that you have to do. And by making them on cloud, what we started seeing, the old guys started realize that one, the job is there. It's only the knowledge that they are kind of, gaining. And by providing, an ecosystem of players who understood this and also the cloud service guys coming and actually we did a lot of work. In fact, 20% of the work was done by cloud service providers sitting in the vendor and in our premises, actually. So I hope I've answered, but it's not an easy journey. Banks have to go to do 80, 90 such applications. And, it's going to be a few years before their workforce can truly say that they're kind of digitally ready, But what I've seen, once people take on and they get that comfort, see, imagine a guy who spent 20 years is loyal to your company. He values you. He understands what he's doing. Second, he's got the experience of managing the ecosystem. Third, he understands the domain. Just that the text angle has to be changed and you have to facilitate that. So that's all we did, And the 2 very interesting examples, I hope I answered your question.
No, absolutely. I think giving them the ownership is sort of something that sounds absolutely exciting, right?
It'll take longer time. It may not be a 7-month project. It's okay. Life is not going to stop here.
Right.
But at the 8th of the 18th month, the second project that the guy will be that much faster, right? So.
Absolutely. And the second one that
I think the time is over. Everything is sharp on time, so we are not going to miss a blip. So I know I have told her not to leave anyone, okay, including me. So I think he thrown in the first session itself, right? So we stop now, but thank you, Ramesh. I think every point was very frank, and that is what we wanted in the session. And I think we have a lot to learn. So thank you, Ramesh, for making it just in time, right? I know he had a session just before it, and he was on call all through. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Ramesh.